rub some people the wrong way and others the right way, and vice versa. But let's talk about this. The biggest breach of the US government data is underway. This is a pretty loaded TechCrunch article. You can definitely tell that they have a strong bias against Elon Musk. You know, I don't like Elon Musk because he lies and cheats at Path of Exile 2. I mean, I'm petty when it comes to video games, you know? Look, I played Diablo 3 hardcore as a barbarian religiously in my late 20s. And I got to 104 on the leaderboard, and it felt really good. And I put a lot of time and a lot of work into doing that. And it still pisses me off that this dude will go pay someone to level up for him and then take that slot from someone. Look, some people, that's all they have. At that time, that's all I had. I'd gone through a divorce. Yes, I've gone through 2 divorces, so obviously I'm the issue. I understand that. We're working on it. But, you know, I go through the divorce. I think I had lost a job even. I had started a new one. I was working from home, that sort of thing, working in IT. And, you know, it meant something to be able to get on that leaderboard, that accomplishment of putting work into something and getting it. And that to be taken away by someone that can just pay to get it done, it just seems unethical and wrong. I don't like it. It pisses me off. But that being said, I'm not going to say that that means that he doesn't build good rockets and that he doesn't have an extremely successful electric car business, and that he understands government spending and contracts because he utilizes those in both of his space projects and his electric car company, along with everything else. He clearly knows all of that stuff extremely well. Now, the big question here is, which has been asked and answered, so I'll give you the question, was going to be what happens to the government spending on the contracts that he takes advantage of. And as far as I understand, and confirmed by both Trump and Musk, Musk will be pulled off of the review of those particular government spending areas. So that sounds good. How true it is, you know, it's hard to prove anything, but at least that sounds good. So hopefully that'll be the case. But TechCrunch, this is weird. It's very baited, and you'll see why. So they say operatives working for Elon Musk have gained unprecedented access to a swath of U.S. government departments, including agencies responsible for managing data on millions of federal employees and system that handles $6 trillion in payments to Americans. During the past 2 weeks, Musk's group of representatives, a presidential advisory board within the Trump administration, known as the Department of Government Efficiency, or Doge for short, have taken control of top federal departments and data sets. Despite questions about their security clearances, their cybersecurity practices, and the legality of Musk's activities. Whether a feat or a coup, which depends entirely on your point of view, a small group of mostly young private sector employees from Musk's businesses and associates, many with no prior government experience, can now view and, in some cases, control the federal government's most sensitive data. That second part of that statement is a downright lie, okay? It has been made very clear in press conferences that they have read-only access. And if you've ever worked on government systems, which I have, I've been working in IT for over a decade now, and I worked for an MSP and we had government contracts. One, I presume all of these individuals had to go through some background checks. You just have to. So to act like they don't have any government experience and they didn't go through a vetting process seems a little ridiculous to me. I don't think that that is even possible. I think that is kind of blown out of proportion. And second to that, it's very easy to control read versus write access. So to say that they have control over the data is downright false. They're not deleting data, writing new data, or anything like that. They're reviewing and vetting it. And to be completely frank with you, I'd rather have somebody outside the government doing that. Because clearly the way we've been doing it recently is not working. It's just not working anymore. You need somebody that's going to go in there and be like, why the hell are you spending $600 million on sushi? And whatever the heck they spent on coffee or whatever. Can you imagine working at like a private corporation and then HR's like, we need to have an average of 45 K-cups per employee per day, even on holidays. No. Absolutely not. And that's why you need somebody that runs businesses to come in and say, hey, look, you're spending too much money on dumb shit. But anyways, that was blown out of proportion as well. The access by Musk's Doge team represents the widest known compromise of the federal government, held data by a private group of individuals, and little has gotten in their way. Doge has acknowledged few details about its ongoing activities. The task has been left to the media, which isn't that the way it's supposed to be? The media is the gatekeepers of what's going on to the public. That's literally the function of media. Are you complaining that you have to do your job now? Ridiculous. So they do say that there's some questionable cybersecurity practices and the breakdown in long-standing cybersecurity norms that risk sensitive government data from being accessed by nefarious actors. I don't see, and maybe I'll need to go look into it more, but I don't know what these sources are for this. I guess it says, for example, a Doge staffer reportedly used a personal Gmail account to access a government call. Okay. And a newly filed lawsuit by federal whistleblowers claims Doge ordered an unauthorized email server to be connected to the government network, which violates a federal privacy law. If that's happening, of course, that will have to be cleaned up. Fair enough. This can't happen. Sure. Can't have Hillary's emails getting out, you know what I mean? Whether Doge staffers are bad actors misses the point. And by the way, I've been in situations where coworkers that have made, let's say, very slight cybersecurity errors completely on accident have ended up, being in court for like 6 months. I'm sure all that's going to happen to these guys. Like that just happens, especially when you have basically private citizens working on government infrastructure, IT infrastructure. That happens a lot more than you would think it would, because it can literally come down to somebody, a private citizen was left in a room with a desktop computer for like 30 seconds and then boom. Now you're in a court case for 6 months to a year. That has happened a lot. And that was nothing. These things are not malicious, right? It's just that the amount of regulation and how strict it is surrounding these types of things will just end up having to be reviewed. And I bet they will be, at least in my experience. It's hard to say, like, well, we're a week into this one. So they do say that there is questionable security clearances. The ease in which Doge took over the departments and their vast stores of Americans' data took career officials and U.S. lawmakers by surprise, who continue to seek answers from the Trump administration. Musk's efforts to take control of the nation's data stores also privately alarmed cybersecurity professionals, some of whom have spent their careers in government dedicated to securing Americans' most sensitive systems and data. Questions remain about what level of security clearance the Doge staff have and whether their interim security clearance gives them the authority to demand access to restricted federal systems. On returning to office, Trump signed an executive order allowing administration officials to grant top secret and compartmentalized security clearance to individuals on an interim basis with little to no substantial vetting, a sharp departure from long-established protocols. And I wonder what that, I mean, obviously, if it's signed in as an executive order, I mean, that's the new rule there. The confusion over Doge staff clearances has led to a brief standoff between several career officials at federal departments in recent days. At the U.S. Agency for International Deployment, senior officials were put on leave after standing in the way of Doge staff to protect classified information, according to the Associated Press. Doge subsequently gained access to the classified facility at USAID, which reportedly contained intelligence reports. Katie Miller, an advisor for Doge, said in an X post that no classified material was associated by Doge without proper security clearances. And I think this is part of the problem that we have, at least the way I read this. And like I said, if I'm looking at this and I'm standing back completely objectively and I listen to what both sides are saying, it sounds like to me there are two groups of people, and this is common. Like, let's say I'm an MSP, right? Managed service provider. So I do IT service for corporations and the government. Let's say it's a government contract, right? You'll have different levels of security clearance of employees within your operation, right? And if it's not required to have security clearance for whatever particular thing that it is, then you can have somebody with either lower security clearance or none do that particular task. And so what it sounds like to me, at least, just because of the way I know the inner workings are from being in the industry, is that they do have tiers of security clearance within Doge, and they are properly assigning those tasks out. And it sounds like to me, everybody reporting on it doesn't know how these things work. At least that's what it feels like to me. And then because of political biases, are blowing this out of proportion. I could be completely wrong, but it just doesn't add up when you hear that they say, one, there's only read access, right? And then they try to say, oh, they have control over the files. Well, it's read access, so kind of, yes, but they're not doing what you imply, which is writing over the files. And then they say, essentially, there are people that don't have security clearance that are getting access. But, if you talk to an advisor, it's clear that they do have individuals that do have security clearances within that organization. Anyways, extremely frustrating to dig through all of this in general, because it's hard to tell, here's the way I see it. Both sides are going to make mistakes, and both sides are going to also have some wins. And what those are always obfuscated by both sides, to the point to where it's really hard to dig through it. But like I said before, overall, this is kind of what the American people wanted from this administration, which was get the bureaucrats out, get someone in there that can actually tell us exactly what's happening. And unfortunately, that means getting people in there that are not a part of the cog in the machine. So it says it's happened within a week. There's a lot more on this. Links down in the description below. That's kind of the part I wanted to talk about because that's where I have expertise specifically as a systems engineer and working in IT for so long. So I thought maybe I could give some kind of background there on how those processes work and go from there. Overall, I think it should be really interesting, and I think will be net positive at the end of the day. You know, if you believe in cryptocurrency and what it stands for, a big part of that is transparency. And there is the argument that for the safety of, you know, military operations, that sort of thing, that some things need to be secret and so on. And I can understand that point of view, but it seems to me that we have a lot more things classified than should be classified. And if you're about the ethos of cryptocurrency, then you would, I think, agree with me that there should be more transparency in governance. Here's a little bit more on it. There's been an agreement between Trump and Musk that you said should be essentially shut down. Now, this impacts, the only reason I bring this up is because of the negative press and the way that you said is talking about, you know, Doge. So you understand the perspective that there are real human beings that have jobs, have careers, been doing this, whose careers are at risk. And so that is going to influence the way that it's talked about and what you hear from them, right? Frankly, that is why it's such a contentious issue. Is you are messing with the livelihoods of individuals, and that will create a bias in that department against, obviously, the other department, the Doge department, right? I hope you enjoyed this clip from the Crypto Mining Show. If you would like to see more from this particular episode, take a look up here. Don't forget to also subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support me directly, you can go to sonofatech.locals.com and become a member. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next Tuesday.